Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to an episode of Skills and Abilities. Today, we're going to be going over the Miasma ability known as a Miasma Bolt. Miasma Bolt is kind of interesting. It is sort of similar to like a Firebolt, sort of similar to like an Ice Bolt or something of that nature, but it has additional mechanics involved. One thing I will point out right away for you guys is that as it increases in level, it also increases in mana cost. So it may be very difficult to stack this early on as a low-level character with limited mana options because you're going to have issues with, like actually getting the spell off. It does have two mechanics to it. So first off, it has the base damage, which is actually when it hits the target. Then it actually creates these like little miasma, like puddles, underneath of the monster's feet, and those little miasma puddles do additional damage, which is actually quite cool. In fact, I was actually looking at them, and there's a lot of ways that you can potentially mess around with the miasma themselves. Now, there are synergies for this, and of course you can beef up the two synergies, which is the miasma chains, which is going to of course increase the damage and the average magic damage per level of the per second, and then there's also the abyss, which increases that as well. Now these are just your standard damage bonuses though. So like even if you pump up all the damage bonuses for the ability, it's not really going to change the way that the ability functions so much as it just adds additional damage to the attacks. And as you can see, it goes up to 638 magic damage with 1,828 magic damage per second, with a miasma radius of 2 yards and a duration of 5.4 seconds. This means that, of course, if I attack one of these monsters, you'll see that the miasma puddle stays on the ground for a particularly long period of time after the monster's there. 5.4 seconds, though, is something that you could definitely stack if you have a high enough faster cast rate, because you can think, like, if I can cast, say, let's pretend you have at least 10 frames on your casting speed. This means, of course, that you can get 25 divided by 10, which is roughly about 2.5 attacks per second, and then we can multiply that by over 5 seconds, which means that you could potentially have 12 and a half, about 12 puddles underneath of the monster's feet. Now, there is another ability, and of course, I think I'm going to be in the way for this one. This one is called Enhanced Entropy, and I'm probably going to have to move myself for this. Enhanced Entropy is a pretty amazing ability that essentially allows you to enhance overall the function of how these abilities work. And if you take a look at it, it says miasma radius increase 4 yards, plus 3.4 seconds to miasma duration, bonus to abyss radius. And what this is going to do is it's going to make your miasma more effective, just in general. If we beef it up to its maximum, you can see that we have miasma radius 4 yards, plus 4 seconds to miasma radius duration, and 7.2 yards to the bonus to abyss. So this brings us up to, looks like 6 seconds and 4 yards on our miasma radius for the miasma bolt, which turns the miasma from a little single target puddle underneath of the monster's feet to more of a actual ability which is going to do damage to a larger crowd. So let's take a look and see how it looks now that we have the additional radius and the duration from the miasma, the enhanced entropy. And let's take a look here. So we've got a couple monsters coming up. So as you can see, our radius on our miasma is much larger now, and the duration of our miasma is lasting much longer, which means that we can stack so many of these little miasma puddles underneath of the monster's feet, dishing out more and more damage. And that while the damage of the ability isn't the most amazing, the amount of these little damage puddles that you could potentially stack underneath their feet at any given time is going to increase exponentially, and it's going to do pretty good AoE damage as well. Pardon me. I've been struggling with a cold, and I'm trying my best. Now, interestingly enough, Miasma Bolt, of course, synergizes with the Abyss. which means that you can very easily combine together Miasma Bolt and the Abyss. This means that you can use the Abyss to suck in the monsters, and you can use the Miasma Bolt to have that puddle underneath of their feet. My suggestion would be to fire the Miasma Bolt first and then apply the Abyss, sucking all the monsters in and causing them to all be hit by the Abyss and the Miasma Bolt at the same time, which is actually really quite good. The damage output is in Nightmare difficulty here, though, so let's move to Hell difficulty so you can see what it looks like against Hell monsters. Of course, it doesn't quite have the same effectiveness, like the same awe factor when I'm in Nightmare difficulty. Let's find some monsters here. So we're going to suck them in and murder them. Suck them in, murder them. Suck them in, murder them. And honestly, like at a certain point, if you start stacking those miasma puddles in the same exact place and using the abyss to suck them in, it actually works surprisingly well. And I could see like an entire build just with faster cast to try and optimize the maximum number of miasma bolts that you could come up with. Increasing the duration of the miasma and the size of the miasma is obviously going to have a huge effect on its damage output, especially in large crowds like cows and things like that. And then combining together with the abyss really makes for a very effective ability because you can just pull all the monsters into that 4-yard radius miasma and cause them to all get damaged at the same time, which allows you to just really stack them in the same place is really all it comes down to. Because if you're firing those miasmas in the same exact spot, you're pulling all the monsters into that spot that you're stacking the miasmas on. Then when the monsters land there, they're going to get hit by 6, 7, 8, 9, like 10 miasmas all at the same time, all proccing damage and just doing massive amounts of damage over time for the target, which is actually really, really good. Now, the damage type of this particular ability is magical damage, which is an element that has been relatively rare in Diablo 2 over the, like many characters. There's only a couple magic damage characters in the game, like Hammerdins, Bone Spear Necromancers, and so forth. Now, this is adding into the list. Now, magic damage tends to be relatively strong early on, but kind of falters later on due to the lack of negative resistance. Except in the Reign of Warlock, they've added a bunch of negative magic resistance sources. You can get some through consuming monsters. For instance, if you use the consume ability, there's quite a few monsters in the game that have some very large negative magic resistances, like Shank the Overseer has negative 42% enemy magic resistance. We also have the Battlemaid Serena with negative 45, and then on top of that there is also Cold Crow, I believe, which for some reason isn't in my list. I believe Cold Crow also has negative magic resistance, but you can eat them. And an easier option is you can potentially just simply eat the Defiler. So the Defiler is a summon that you can summon yourself, and you can just simply go ahead and grab yourself a Defiler. It's one of those crazy little monsters that's in like Act 5 that like infects other people and causes them to make their own little minions. It's kind of disgusting, to be perfectly honest. But if you go to the consume ability, you'll see that it offers negative 10% enemy magic resistance and 20% skill damage, magic skill damage, which is going to be very effective for increasing your damage on your ability. And let me go ahead and eat him right now. And you can see that I've gone up to 753 magic damage and 2,157 magic damage per second. It's going to be a really solid build early on because not a lot of monsters in the game have magic immunity, and not a lot of monsters in the game have magic resistance, period. There are some monsters in the game that have really high magic resistance, like the Ubers and whatnot, but hopefully by the time you reach that point, you will have amassed enough negative magic resistance via gear, consume options, and other things to get like the Sunder Charm, for instance, to make a kind of a moot point. Of course, when you build Miasma Bolt, you get access to all of the other skills like Miasma Chain and Abyss, and if you beef up the Enhanced Entropy, you can really make Miasma Bolt into quite an interesting AoE damage ability. Overall, I'm very impressed with it as a starter ability, although the mana cost per cast does continually rise with every single level that you put into this ability, which means that it's going to continue to get worse and worse and worse as far as mana cost. So I hope you're prepared to deal with the mana issues that this ability is going to bring to your character. It could also potentially help tremendously if you had a solid tank. And the Goatman might be that tank for you if you're running like the cheap build setup, because having the Goatman standing there holding them in place means that they're going to obviously not move. And them not moving it means that, well, just in general, they're going to stand there and take the brunt force of the ability. So even combining it with Abyss, of course, which also sucks them in, but this one, of course, is going to help get them to stand still in one place so that you could very easily stack those puddles. In fact, having a strong mercenary or a strong minion with this ability is definitely going to go a long way, because a lot of your damage comes from the damage over time puddle that is under their feet, not the actual on hit damage, which is mediocre at best. I mean, it's, what is that? Less than half, right? So it's less than half of the damage per second. And of course, you can drop multiple puddles under their feet, so you can have multiple puddles ticking at the same time, dealing massive amounts of magic damage. Um, and that's pretty much it. Lethargy probably would go really well with this ability, just to slow the monsters down as well, making it easier for your minion tank, and also making it harder for them to get out of the miasma. And then, of course, the Abyss can definitely be used to pull them around and get them into the miasma as well. I mean, it's a very solid build. I think it's a safe build early on because of the just general goodness of magic damage for bypassing most resistances in the game early on. It definitely has some good options too between the miasma bolts, the chain, and the abyss. Like going back and forth, you can definitely have some pretty fun like encounters. Miasma chain in general just is really fun as well, having the chains running around doing average damage per second as well, which you could very easily combine together with miasma bolt for another form of damage, because you can get the miasma chains going on the other side of the monster, um, and the miasma bolts at the same time, right? So like you can have like a pack of monsters like this, you can have a couple chains running, you can fire off a couple bolts, and you can definitely have like everything going at the same time, dishing out massive amounts of magic damage. I think a lot of people are going to have fun with the Abyss setup. I do think that with the negative magic resistance that they've added into the game, the Abyss could be extremely powerful, or rather, the entire like miasma tree, let's just call it miasma tree, is going to be really powerful. I think people are going to enjoy it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments of the miasma bolt ability. Are you guys planning on making your own miasma bolt build? We'll have to do some theory crafts before the ladder launch, so look out for those. And as always, keep watching.